Hey everyone, this is Jason and Kishore, co-founders of Typesense. So thank you for joining us for this our second community call where we talk about our roadmap, and this time we're also going to do a spotlight on one of our contributors to our Dart client library, who we'll introduce shortly. So if you've been to the last one, thank you for joining again. We hope you'll continue joining us for future events. We'll be recording this. We are recording this, and we'll be sharing this out separately as well. So a couple of key highlights since the last time that we did this call. So I'm excited to announce that we crossed 2.5 million Docker pools or downloads, which is super exciting for us. Just 2 months ago, it was at 1 million downloads, and it's starting to go up significantly. So it's super exciting to watch. So thank you everyone who's been using Docker to Typesense. That metric is looking good. And we crossed 9,100 stars on GitHub just this morning, and on Typesense Cloud, we crossed about 100 million requests per month across all the clusters that we're running in production. And on our Slack channel, I think we're at 499 members. I was hoping for it to cross 500 before this event, but we'll soon be crossing 500 members, which I'm excited about. So all around, I'm excited that word is getting out about Typesense, and that so many of you are using Typesense. And as folks that are building the product, it's super encouraging for us to see the product being used by so many folks. So that really helps us stay motivated. So thank you for all the support, over these years, and specifically over the last few months. And along those lines, so we've also had a lot of interest from VCs or venture capitalist investors over the last maybe 18 months or so, expressing interest to invest in Typesense. To everyone who's reached out, I want to say thank you for reaching out, and thank you for all the insightful conversations we've had over the years, over the year and a half now. I appreciate your support, but we've, at this point, for a variety of reasons, we've decided not to raise venture capital funds, and instead we want to build a business that's funded primarily by revenue from paying customers. And I've outlined a lot of reasons. If you haven't looked at it in our blog post, I'd encourage you to go through it. For now, I'm happy to say that we're fully funded by customer revenue, so we're super excited about that. And that helps the Typesense project be sustainable for a long time into the future. So we're very happy about that fact. So we'll share the link out to that blog article as well after this call. But it's a conscious decision that we're choosing not to raise VC funds, and we're happy about that decision right now. So that's it for updates so far, and then we'll now talk about the roadmap of things that we've shipped so far, and also what's coming up in the future. Kishore.
Cool. So with 0.22, it's mostly a bunch of bug fixes. But if you look at the actual 0.22.0, which is the release that we did in early December, that had like a lot of features that we were excited about, a lot of features that were pending for quite some time. One is the ability to have custom symbols and token separators. So if you want to index words with hyphen separately, there was no way to do that because Typesense was just removing those special characters. Now you can have separators and symbols to be indexed explicitly when you create your collection as a configuration. We also introduced dynamic filtering as a form of override. So you can say that if there is a query that contains your color, automatically apply a color filter as a filter when you process the query. You can read up. I'm not going to go into too much details, but you can just read up on each of those in the features that you can deep dive into. We also introduced server-side caching. Even though TypeSense was fast already and is already in memory, we thought that for certain heavy requests, it is good to just cache them, especially if they are not going to change often. So we introduced a use cache and a cache TTL. You can even have like a 1-day cache if you want, if your data doesn't change that often. We also added a search cutoff milliseconds parameter that it kind of protects your server if you accidentally make a really expensive query. You want to just make sure that doesn't take up all your resources. You can do that now. And finally, we added a geo precision option to, if you're doing geo search, you can treat like basically all points within like a particular radius as being the same, because you don't care if one particular point is 1.1 mile versus 1 mile away from a particular your target location, right? So it's almost the same. So you can add a geo precision to kind of give you a grouping mechanism on the points that fall within a particular radius. Um, Apart from that, as far as like the enhancements goes, a lot of memory consumption improvement. We saw like nearly 20 to 30%, depending on the shape of your data. You were saving memory. We had customers who were on the verge of upgrading their RAM, and then they upgraded to this version, and then they've had like a 30-35% or free space to like work with. And similarly, we have worked very hard on our search performance. And like whether and also we have parallelized multi-collection, right? So if you're having one collection per customer and you have hundreds of thousands of customers, now these collections can be written in parallel, while in the past it used to be like you can only write to any one collection. And a couple of smaller things, like we have added exhaustive search parameter, because sometimes TypeSense, if you have a lot of records that match a particular prefix, it doesn't have enough information, enough confidence to tell you what is the exact word you're trying to type. We used to reduce the search space, but in some cases, like with example, you're searching for UPC or model part numbers, you would want to do an exhaustive search. So we introduced that parameter, and also added the ability to do exact filtering on strings with the colon equals operator. Um, there are a bunch of other things, filtering. One very much asked for feature is the ability to filter by documents using the ID in the filter by query, which wasn't possible. You had to kind of create another your custom ID and then use that as a regular field, because ID is like a special field. We weren't supporting a filter by using that. Um, yeah, and a couple more issues like geo search not sorting the not sorting the order of the points. It's like a usability issue that it always had to be in a counterclockwise order, but you don't now have to define it that way. We have fixed that. And as far as bug fixes go, as I mentioned earlier, we kind of we push back. If we try to also backport bug fixes, like if we have 0.22.2, which is like the stable version, if we find significant bugs in 0.23 as we are developing, we tend to like backport them to 0.22. So you can see like a bunch of bugs. I'm not going to go into every one of them. There are quite a few, but you can see like the ones that are new in 0.22. We mark them out. So we fix them, we backport them, and we do a 0.22 release. So if we find, touchwood, any more subtle bugs before we officially launch 0.23, which is at least a few weeks out, we might do a 0.22.3. We don't have anything yet, but that's general way things flow. So some deprecations and behavior changes to keep to note for. We one thing is we have changed a couple of parameters that like drop tokens threshold, typo tokens threshold. We've changed the default values for them. So if you are just relying on the defaults earlier, please make sure that you set them. And we have also set the minimum word length for one character typo to 4, because we were noticing a lot of false positive. A lot of people were for small words. There are a lot of words that kind of match within one character typo. So we didn't want that to happen. So, but you can still change it by using the min len 1 typo and min len 2 typo parameters to customize these defaults. And the final deprecation is like the ID field cannot be part of the collection schema anymore, because the ID field is like a special field. You cannot really do, like, for example, sorting on it. We don't support that. So people were getting confused. So we decided to, like, if you define an ID field in the schema, it will not show up in your it will not be treated as a, it will just be ignored, right? And the only thing you can do with the ID field is, like, you can refer to it for, like, getting an individual document, or you can do a filter on that. And finally, if you're upgrading 0.22, note that, the data format on the disk changes. So if you upgrade to 0.22 and you want to downgrade back to 0.21.0, it is the data format is different. So we do have 0.21.1, which is backward compatible with 0.22. So you can use that. Or you can take a snapshot and do it. And we have, like, a bunch of instructions to, like, how you could do it. And also we have detailed out the downgrading thing. I'm not going to go into the details. You can read that on the like the release notes. So with that, we can go to what's coming up in 0.23. Like a quick recap, the way we do our planning is like what we call as just-in-time planning. We plan about 2 months in advance, and then even within that 2 months, if we have, like, issues that either bugs or feature requests which we feel are, like, important enough that we should reprioritize, we tend to do that. So let's quickly talk about, like, some of the things I'm excited about in the 0.23 release. One is the sort by string, which has been asked for nearly like couple of years now. If you go back to that GitHub issue, it is, like, pretty old, but we couldn't. It's June 2020, so it's 2 years now. I mean, it's almost 18 months. But the thing is, we could not we took a long time to arrive at the data structure that we were comfortable with, for that was fast and also didn't consume too much memory, and it was flexible. Like, it did not restrict you to maybe, like, only the first 40-50 characters, which is an approach that we have seen other libraries take. So very happy with like the way we implemented. We waited, but I think it's worth it. Second, the other feature that is in progress, which has been sponsored by a community user who wants to remain anonymous at the moment, is the infix and suffix searching. Um, uh, uh, for example, if you're doing model part numbers, users tend to often search in the middle of the model number, which is not supported in a prefix search engine like Typesense. We only look at the first. We can only search for the first n characters. We cannot search for a character that is, like, any n characters in the middle of a string. So this is again a very frequently requested use feature request for people who want to search on model numbers, which it often comes up as a requirement. So that's in play, and it will be part of the 0.23 release. The next feature is presets. What you call as presets is, let's say you have a search interface that uses a bunch of filters and bunch of parameters and so on, but you want to parameterize it and, like, give it a name, right? You want to, like, for example, you have a listing page, you want to give it a name, so that it is like you can refer to it. You just need to say, you know, call the Typesense API with a preset, which where you pre-store all your search configurations beforehand, and you can just refer to it by name. This is really useful for you to, let's say you're trying multiple search configurations and you want to do an A/B test with one list type, one sorting order versus another. You can just call them. You can create two presets for each search configuration, and then do an A/B test on that, and it's just like a bookmark for, like, a bunch of configurations. The next feature is space as typo. So if you had Apple iPhone without a space in between, previously Typesense couldn't find the record, but now we support that. If you type I space phone, we'll be able to support it. If you type Apple iPhone, you'll be able to split Apple and iPhone and search them separately. And phrase match, again, a very frequently requested feature. Like, if you wrap your search string with double quotes, you want to search for that exact only for documents that contain that exact phrase. So we supporting that. And compiling Typesense binary on ARM. This was a community-led kind of a community-led feature because it wasn't high priority for us, but a lot of people were asking. So I requested a community member to, can you try compiling and tell me what is going wrong, and based on that, I'll be able to see whether we can slot that in. And a community member actually went and compiled Typesense and all its dependencies on an ARM machine on AWS, and he shared a very precise set of, hey, this is error on this project, and based on that, we were able to quickly narrow down what were the compatibility issues with ARM. We patched that, and now we have an ARM binary which we will publish officially as part of the 0.23 release going forward. And a couple of other, this one is a big one, the prefix highlight. So if you, in 0.22, Typesense highlights the entire word, even if you're searching for just a part of it, like a prefix. So if you're searching for APP, in the results, instead of highlighting only the APP part of Apple, the entire Apple used to get highlighted. But from a lot of feedback in terms of usability, people felt it's better, especially in a multi-word searches, only the prefix part of the word to be highlighted. So we have fixed that in 0.23. If we have quite a few customers who use Cyrillic, we have improved support for that. And then we have I'm going to quickly run through the remaining things. We have a new import action called mplace, which combines what upsert and update does. Right now, if you're doing an upsert, it requires you to send the whole document, while only update allows you to send partial document. So mplace is like kind of a superset. You can send partial document, you can send the whole document, you can send a document that doesn't exist. It doesn't matter. It's really flexible. It's very useful when you're building like a synchronization pipeline. So the other things are like bugs and the one thing I want to talk about is like a compatibility issue with Ubuntu 21, and also some of the latest versions of Fedora. There was a glib3 compatibility issue that we have fixed in this RC build. Again, that will be a part of the 0.23 release. And finally, I'll just talk about the delete. There was a bug that we found, like deletes were very slow on large documents. We fixed that.
Awesome. So on the other side, with Typesense Cloud, a couple of updates that we've had since now. Actually, I can stop sharing the screen. So we don't necessarily publish a public roadmap for Typesense Cloud because, as you might already know, we run the same open source version of Typesense in Typesense Cloud as well, except that we take care of the infrastructure. And we provide a UI for you to manage your collections and your clusters, and provide monitoring and scaling. So a couple of things that, which is why we don't publish a roadmap per se for Typesense Cloud itself, because most of the features that show up in Typesense Cloud are just Typesense features that end up making their way into Typesense Cloud. So a couple of updates on the Typesense Cloud product is we've launched 4 new regions where you can launch clusters into. So there's Paris, Milan, Osaka, and Stockholm. So you could, of course, spin up single nodes there. You could spin up 3 node high availability clusters there. But where this useful, and this based on users who've been telling us, is you can also spin up search delivery network clusters in these 4 new regions. So users who are your search users who are in any of these 4 cities, and if you have a search delivery network cluster spun up with nodes in any of those cities, then those users will get their queries serviced by the nodes in that particular city. So it just means it's going to be much more faster for the users in those cities. Previously, we only had nodes in Frankfurt, London, and Ireland in the Europe region. And in Japan, we only had it in Tokyo. So adding these new regions means there's more people within additional parts of those areas will have a fast search experience. Another thing that we've also added in terms of access control is in Typesense Cloud, previously everyone who logged in with a GitHub organization will have access to all the Typesense Cloud clusters in that organization. Now we've added the ability for you to restrict access to particular teams within GitHub. So if you can create a team just for Typesense who needs access to Typesense Cloud, add all those GitHub users there. And then when they log in, only the people within that team will be able to access your Typesense Cloud clusters. And then a very important update that we've made is the ability to auto upgrade clusters, or you can also manually schedule upgrades, whether it's Typesense versions, even if it's RC builds, we're able to upgrade you from our side. And more importantly, on the capacity front, if you pick a baseline of RAM and CPU that you need, over time, as your usage increases, we monitor it automatically. And then if you check a box to enable auto upgrades, we will keep scaling up your clusters as you go along, so you don't have to worry about keeping an eye on CPU or RAM usage. If you enable auto upgrades, we will keep upgrading it from our side as various capacity thresholds are met. And of course, we'll send out a notification when that happens. But that should significantly reduce the amount of monitoring overhead that you might have previously had to keep an eye on Typesense Cloud clusters. Now we'll do that for you. With that, you still have to opt in because it has billing implications. So once you opt in, we'll keep upgrading you based on your usage. So that's it for Typesense Cloud and also Typesense. So I want to reiterate something that Kishore said. So we do just-in-time planning. The roadmap that we presented is a plan. We tend to reprioritize constantly, like, case in point, like the infix search feature. That was in the very long-term roadmap. And a user asked for it, and they also sponsored us on GitHub. They chose to remain anonymous, but they sponsored us on GitHub, and we've been working with them to shape that features. And so they were able to essentially get the feature that they wanted prioritized. So that's why we say we only plan for 2 months, and even within that, we keep changing. Like, this is a good example of someone who wants a particular feature for their particular use case and decided to sponsor it. So we're excited that we're able to move this feature up as well, because a few folks have asked for it. So excited for 0.23, hopefully in a couple of weeks or a month or so. But in the meantime, if there are any major issues that come up, we'll of course be doing more point releases in 0.22. All right, so that's it for the roadmap part of this event. And for the next part of our event, I want to introduce Harpreet here. He contributed our entire Dart client and took it from 0 to what it is today, which is amazing. And also found a couple of bugs in the other clients as he was implementing the Dart client, which is awesome. So welcome, Harpreet. We're super excited to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So yeah, tell us about yourself, Harpreet. What do you do? What's your background? How did you get into programming?
So I'm from India, and my background was initially it was in medical, but I switched from medical to software development just because I liked the process of it. Like how you can virtualize everything, and how it affected so many people, right? So that's how I started, and right now I'm contributing to your project, the client, Dart client. So yeah,
that's awesome. So was Dart the first programming language that you picked up, or did you do other languages?
No. So during the college, I did my bachelor's in computer application. So we went from C, then C++, and a few more other languages. So C++ was my kind of stronghold. So yeah, that's how that was my first main language, I would say. So yeah.
Got it. Okay. Well, today I learned something new. Typesense is in C++ as well. So
Yeah. I do.
awesome.
Yeah.
So how did you find out about Typesense?
So it was, during the phase while I was learning that, because I started with Flutter and I wanted to know about that, and I joined this Reddit community around that, and I saw your post, requesting for contributions to the Dart client, and I reached out to you, and you guided me through that. So that's how I'd say it started.
Yeah. I actually remember that conversation, and I remember you were mentioning to me that I'm not sure if I'll be able to do this whole thing, and etc. And I was actually pleasantly surprised with how it turned out after the fact. Like, you seem much more senior than what you let on. I feel like. So I'm excited that you finally decided to contribute and took it from basically, I think it was very few conversations you were able to just look at the how other clients were built, and based on that you were able to do it, which I was pleasantly surprised for how far you were able to get with very little guidance. In fact, after our conversation, I was thinking maybe we should document some of the things that I was telling you on how to structure the client. Still have that as a to-do item. Cool. So tell us. So how was the experience of writing a client? Like, what were some things that you ran into that maybe we should document to make it easier for the next set of contributors?
Not so much as issues like I don't know if I have any input for that, but back when I was starting with the Dart client, right, I was beginner in that language itself, so it took me quite some time to adapt to that. And one thing sorry, I'd like to share, like, not every concept of language is applicable to the other language. So I don't think we'll have a guide map for that. Like, you can follow these steps and you can implement a client in another language. That's my input. So.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, one thing I remember that conversation that we've had as well, like following idiomatic or idioms in particular languages versus consistency across different clients, especially in how different methods are called. I think you actually brought up one interesting example where now that after you mentioned it, it seemed like, yes, maybe we should have done that for all the clients. But then we had already implemented it a certain way in other clients, and then updating everyone and getting everyone in a backward incompatible way seemed like quite the task. But that was definitely an interesting point that you brought up. Actually, another question I had was, so was this your first open source contribution? Have you done other open source contributions in the past?
Yes. So when I was learning that, I was looking to implement some data structures around it. So coming from C++ background, we always had pointers to everything, right? If we're going to implement tree, we'll have a pointer in the node to the next node. And the Dart language doesn't have the concept of pointers. So I was confused, like, how would I implement a tree in Dart? So I was just looking through, implementations of data structures, and they were quite, there weren't many implementations there. And but I stumbled upon the GitHub page of I'd say my first mentor I've ever had. Like, he was Muffinar Khan, and he had this repository of Dart algorithms, and I went through that, and looking through the code and issues, I found one issue where he was looking, where he wanted to add a feature of like it was feature to how to delete a node in a BSD. So he simply said, I forgot to implement it. If you want to implement it, you're welcome to open PRs. So that was my first contribution to an open source project. I
Nice.
remember that distinctly. Yeah.
That's awesome. So how has your open source journey been since then? Like, have you found that to be useful? Like, what would you say are your motivators for contributing to open source?
So the best motivator is like everybody is welcome from regardless of their background, like of knowledge or level of competency. Like not level of competency, the level of knowledge they bring into the project, right? And that's the main motivator. Like I had a very little knowledge of Dart when I implemented that first PR of deleting an node in the BSD. I didn't even know how you connected to nodes in Dart. So that was that's how open source helps. Like you can just start contributing, like look for avenues where you can start contributing, and you'll go much further ahead. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So could you describe that particular issue that you found as you were implementing? Remember the cache leak issue? Do you want to describe
Yes.
that? I think that's a pretty interesting one that you described. How did you find out about it? Did you actually expect it to be a bug in other clients? Like what was maybe could you describe what that feature is and then describe how you found out the issue?
Sure. So there was a feature introduced in the client itself that will be caching the results. So what we were doing is we were creating a map of caches, and we had the request options which were given for the search parameters as the key, and the search result was stored as the value, right? So what we were doing in that implementation is like we were only checking if the key existed in the map, and if it was if it was expired, then only we were replacing it, and we weren't deleting that key if it was expired, right? So what that meant was if we wouldn't call that particular key again, it would still remain there, and that would cause memory usage to grow up. So that was the issue I found out, and I shared with you.
Awesome. Yeah, that was actually a very interesting issue. That if the way it affected the JavaScript client is in a browser, if someone didn't refresh their page for a long time, or if it's in a React Native environment, for example, as you keep doing searches, we were essentially, the memory usage would keep increasing because the cache wasn't being evicted as expected. So that was a great find. And then someone else from the community, Damien, jumped in to help fix that in the JS client, and by adding a max amount of the cache entries that can be held at any time, and then it'll start evicting keys. So it was I think it was a LRU with a PTL is what we finally implemented, which is pretty cool. So thank you for finding that out pointing that out again. So what would you say are, if someone is thinking of just starting in open source, or maybe someone has never contributed to open source, but they always have this desire to do that, how would you recommend that they get started? Any tips? That, and then on the second part is, if someone's already contributing a little bit of open source, what would you say? How do you help? Would you say they'll or what would your advice be to them to balance their open source work versus maybe they have another full-time job? Like, what would your recommendation be?
So for the first part of the question, like how do you start with the contribution or contributing to the open source project? Basically, there's two ways to look at this, right? Either you find out, the projects that appeal to you, like the projects that have made an impact in your life, and or you can filter the projects according to the language you know, and you feel like you can contribute to that language, or you can find out projects like which the language you want to learn, like I did. Like I wanted to learn that, and I found out you were looking for contributors to Dart client, so that's how it went. Then further, you can find issues, or you could contribute to code, or you could contribute to wikis, and so most importantly, you have to find people of like-minded people, right? Which would help you to guide, which will guide you through the project. Sorry, the through the contributions, like you did with the Dart client, right? For me, and that when you find that community, you'll get to grow personally as well, and you'll help contribute to the project itself. So that's how you get started, and balancing your life, personal life with contributions. You could maybe think of this as an hobby, right? Like you have a hobby, you indulge in it, so you find that balance on your own. Like how do you contribute? When do you contribute to the open source project, and when do you take out time for your own life or your work? So that's something you can find easily, I suppose.
Got it. Okay. Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing about your journey. Anything else that I should have asked? Anything interesting that you think we should bring up during this call as it relates to TypeSense, Dart? Maybe are you looking for any additional contributors for anything that anyone can help with in the Dart client?
Sure. You mentioned the issue I found, right, regarding the memory leak. So to fix that, we'll have to implement TLRU algorithm, as you mentioned, like time, which will evict the entries with according to the time expiration date. So actually, I've been looking to. Let me just share my screen.
Yep.
I was thinking about using this package dcache to fix that issue. I did implement the TLRU algorithm, and it seems the project owner is unresponsive. So if somebody can help with this, like they could review my code or get it merged through. So that would be helpful, like to fix that memory leak issue we've been having. So yeah,
awesome.
that's
Okay, yeah, maybe if you want to post it in our Slack community,
okay.
Maybe in the contributions channel, maybe others can jump in as well. But that's cool that you contributed to another open source library to add this feature, or an existing caching library to add the TLRU, and then you're using that in the Dart client. That's pretty cool.
They had a pretty cool implementation, architecture, I'd say. So that's why I decided to contribute to TLRU to their project.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Well, it was awesome having you here, and actually, this is the first time we're actually speaking face to face. So that I think that's it's another amazing thing about open source. We just connected randomly from around the world, and we were working together. So I love that about open source, and yeah, glad we finally had a chance to speak face to face. Thank you for joining us.
Same here. Thank you for having me.
Cool. All right. So, well, everyone else, thank you for joining us. Let me quickly check if there are any questions here. Yeah, I guess oh, hang on, let's see. Oh, okay. Yep, okay. I mean, I'd say we started. So the main thing that we actually did was post about the fact that we're building Typesense on Hacker News, and then on Product Hunt. Like that was the main places that we actually spoke about Typesense. And I'm grateful that the community there was very supportive and encouraging. In both times we made it to the above the fold in Product Hunt and front page in on Hacker News, and the community from there I feel like has slowly been adopting Typesense and then sharing the word as well, and it kind of grew from there. And then as far as like our the community that's on Slack, it's mainly just having a channel to begin with for folks to come and participate, ask questions, help others that are that have questions as well, and help each other out. So it was mainly facilitating that. There was no active, and then also telling people that the community exists, but there was no like active, we want to build a community type effort. It kind of organically happened. A lot of people were asking us, hey, is there a place where we could like share notes or ask questions or talk to other Typesense users, etc. So just based on users asking us, we started creating it. We just created a Slack channel, and then whoever asked for it, we asked them to told them that, hey, it exists now, so feel free to join, and it kind of grew from there. And same thing with stars. I mean, we've never actually focused on stars being a thing. And I feel like anytime we did any of these, we mentioned about Typesense on Hacker News, for example, it seemed like the number of stars increased, which is pretty interesting to watch. And then anytime we do new releases, we tweet about it. That tends to help a little bit in terms of getting some visibility that new updates are being done. Besides that, I think the most gratifying part is just watching it happen without us spending too much effort per se, especially like I mentioned in the beginning of the call with Docker pools. I feel a strong like word of mouth awareness of Typesense growing, which is very, very motivating to watch. Right. And then the next question is, what inspired? Oh, I thought I saw another question here. Oh yeah, okay. So actually, a question for Harpreet. How did things change for you personally and professionally after this contribution or starting open source contributions?
So personally, I got to learn a lot. I learned about Dart itself, and some specific features about web implementations as well. So I didn't know, as we were discussing about the memory leak issues, Jason mentioned that if the user would refresh the page, all the memory usage would will be initialized. So that's not how I thought it would happen. Like in the mobile, it would only the usage only grows as the user will keep searching through the application. So that's how I got to know more about things. And professionally, I'd say in interviews, people tend to take you kind of seriously when you mention you're a free open source contributor. So I'd say that really helps to get through the initial phase of the hiring. I'd say that's how I felt. That's about it.
That's great to hear. And in fact, I've heard this from a couple of other contributors as well, that saying that they've contributed to an open source library and that they maintain it, they own it, definitely helps professionally. Not that that should be the gating factor. It's just something to stand out because not everyone finds time to contribute to open source, but it's a good way to stand out from if there's a large pool of applicants for a role. All right, I don't think there are any more questions answered. No. Okay. All right. Well, I think that's the end of our event for now. So thank you for joining us, and thank you for all the support. I want to reiterate that through the years with all the and I like to use the word contributors in a very broad sense, like Kishore mentioned. Like even if you've opened an issue asking for a feature and telling us why you want that feature, like that is also contribution. So thank you for that. If you discovered bugs and pointed that out and shared your data set with us, thank you for that as well. Like every little bit of feedback that we get definitely helps a lot in improving the product for everyone and supporting interesting use cases. So we really appreciate it, and we hope to continue shipping features that you ask us for. And so hopefully we'll see you in no promises, maybe in a month or a quarter with an update on the next event. But we definitely want to do this consistently. The cadence is something that we're still working through, but at least within the next quarter, we'll be back to share an update and introduce someone else from our community as well.